Well, Danny, good to see you, and plenty to talk about with the under-21s first home game of the season coming up on Saturday. But there have been plenty of changes at the academy over the summer, so I guess let's start there and start with your new role. Tell us about how the changes have affected you.
Yeah, it's obviously last season led the 18s with Jono, which was a really positive season, and then worked with these players really for a couple of years since I joined. And then now this season I've come back in a different role, so leading the 21s and then also looking after the phase, particularly at the style of play, just making sure that we're playing in the way that we set out to play. And then really managing the staff around that and the schedules and the programming and the IDPs. So yeah, slightly different role, still very much involved in the coaching, but a little bit more leadership in there as well.
Presumably the style isn't really going to change. That's sort of set out by the academy at the top level.
Yeah, it's always live, I suppose. You're always trying to evolve a style, depending on the way the game moves. But it was set out 2 years ago. It was a little bit of a work in progress as we sort of built the playbook, looked at what we wanted to look like without the ball, with the ball, and then in those sort of transitional moments. And then really that's been evident, I think, certainly for a couple of years with the 18s and the 21s. And I suppose ultimately as coaches, we'll be judged off getting lads in the first team and hopefully getting lads into the Premier League. But then also if you turn up on a Saturday, you should really see a clear style of play. If you turn up on a Friday to watch the 21s, you should see the same style of play. So yeah, that's something that's been a work in progress, but we've really got nailed down now, and hopefully you'll see that in evidence this season.
The B team has been introduced as well, and they've been in action a couple of times already. How does that fit into the work that you'll be doing with the 21s, with the 18s?
Yeah, so obviously, Briggsy's leading that programme alongside the first team staff, and they work really closely together. Clearly, there'll be 21s that, cross over between the two, and I think that's a good thing for them to go from the style of play that the academy have to then a really clear style of play that the first team have when they're going with the B team and working in a similar way. So you'll have a group of players that train, alongside them, and you've seen that a lot in pre-season. They'll be taken across and they'll go into different rondos, and they might go into set plays with them, help them with the match prep and be around the sessions. So it's been great for those lads because they're getting at times that development experience, but then they get closer to that real edge of performance, which is now very much about 3 points. They get to feel how intense it can be at times, that step up in speed and quality when you go up to that level. So it's been a really good involvement, I think, within the programme. And again, I was saying from the game Tuesday at Oxford, you had first team lads, playing alongside lads that have come through the academy, talking to them, helping them. You've got first team staff, that have had a real heavy involvement with them as well and have been really good with their IDPs. So it's brilliant to see that sort of transitional period now happening for the lads that have done well with the academy to get this opportunity with the B team and to get a little bit closer to the first team and really taste it.
Looking specifically at the 21s group, always changes in the playing staff. Some age out, some come in, a couple of departures, a couple of new faces. But it seems as though there is still that good core returning from last season.
Yeah. Well, we were really fortunate with, a good group of players that come through at the same time. So it was great last season to see, every player as a second-year scholar get a professional contract. Damien obviously left to join Arsenal towards the end of the season, and he'd been great for us for a couple of seasons. So we really do wish him well and hope he kicks on there. But then the rest of the players really have remained, had a couple of additions as well in Cammy and Jamie, who have joined us recently, and they're now starting to get used to that style of play. But it's always good, especially for new players as well, when you come in to a group that's got a stable core and that carry really good values and can really help bring them into the culture and what we're going after. Having that stable core can really help that.
A lot of the lads have spent a lot of the time around the first team in pre-season. Isaac Gordon, Kai Robinson, Freddie Turley, Lennon Wheeldon, just to name a few. What has that exposure done for them, do you think?
It can only help. It can only help. It is. You can do so many things with an academy to prepare them for that, but there's some things that you just have to get by going in there. Even playing in front of a crowd where, big crowd where it really does matter. And of course, academy games should matter, but it's not the same pressure. And going in amongst, being in amongst that and seeing what it's like, around the first team staff, just what it's like with the first team players and how desperate they are to win at everything, and the real strong characters that you've got within that. I just think it's such a good development for them, and you can see that when they come back in. There's a new lease of confidence, and I think you start to see them just add into our culture as well. Understanding the expectations when they go up there and trying to bring some of that back in. You'll go up, and I always used to say, often in a training ground, you'll get under nines, and then you'll go through to the first team, and almost in a training ground you can move through it. One thing you really sense as you move through is that noise and that energy that you get when you start to edge up towards the first team. And really that comes from just high performing elite people just wanting to win at everything they do. So they've enjoyed it, they've gone up, they've definitely felt that good pressure, and I think they've brought in some good habits back to us. Presumably
the hope is that as the season goes on, you can sort of wave goodbye to a couple of them and they join the first team group and you never see them again, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, more than happy to wave goodbye in a situation like that. That's what it should be about. Ultimately, I think if we're doing our jobs right, I've said this consistently, lads do well at the 16s. This club has got to be about opportunity. That's what we speak about. There's got to be that pathway. So if you do well at the 16s and you earn the right, you get a chance with the 18s. If you do well with the 18s and you earn the right, you've got the 21s and it goes through to the B team and then hopefully goes through to the first team. As you've said, you've mentioned a few names there and it's brilliant to see, but we can't ever get away from that. We've got to make sure that that opportunity is there, and then it's down to the lads. We'll do everything we can to put them in the best place possible and work with them no matter what. But ultimately, when they get that opportunity, when they're in front of the gaffer and his first team staff and the other players, they've got to take it, and that has to land on their toes, really.
To matters on the pitch, your season got underway last Friday night. Really wild game at Ipswich, 4-3. What did you make of it?
Oh, any hair I did have left has gone. I think I think I said after, it was very much a cliche, but it was such a game of two halves. Started off so well, had a lot of the ball, looked really controlled, composed, and to be honest, could have gone in really 4-0 up, and maybe the game should have been put to bed early. And then come out to the second half, and almost everything we spoke about at half time around, they're not going to look the same. They're probably going to go a little bit more direct at times. They're certainly going to come after you with more players. Felt like everyone was pretty well prepped and ready, but I just think you could sense just a little bit too much complacency. And then to score or concede two so quickly, you just seen the momentum shift. And then really, I just felt they didn't manage the game well enough from that point. Really disappointing way to lose the game, to be 2-0 up and 3-2 up. But again, I think for these lads, it's just brilliant lessons to learn, and we probably got more debrief in that game than we have in the pre-season games where we've won comfortably. How do you manage those moments? How do you slow the game down when it's starting to get away from you? How do you see out games? The defending, at times, the lads will know as a team just wasn't up to our level. There's some really soft goals to give away. And this is the important part now. In a couple of weeks, you never know, two lads could be called upon from the first team. You've got to learn those lessons quick if you want to get into that level.
Birmingham up next on Saturday, drew with Stoke to start their season last week. One of the teams that have been added to Premier League 2 this season. I mean, you're certainly going to see a lot of variety once again, aren't you?
Yeah, you will do. You will do. Look, at the moment as well, it's it's been a tough pre-season. There's a lot of injuries, but I don't ever think that's particularly a bad thing all the time. I think injuries create opportunity for the players. So a lot of players will be coming in. We'll have some young lads in there as well that'll have an opportunity to step up and play at this level. So really, it's in a good place at the moment, I think. When you look at the amount of lads that have been in and around the first team, the amount of 21s that have crossed over to the B team, 18s so early in the season, getting an opportunity with 21s, there's a real chance for players to, stake a claim for a place, and lads that are out injured, then having to come back in and fight to get their place back. I think that's a healthy position to be in at times.